Welcome to Skillcast, the podcast by the London Organisation of Skills Development, where skills are the forefront of all conversations. My name is Nurbanu, and I'll be the host for Season 1. Join me as I dig deep and be a little nosy and find out the story behind the skills our expert guests share with us.
Today I'm joined with Yanick, who's come all the way from Canada. Yanick, I'm going to pass it on to you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. So my name is Yanick Se, and for my short life, I've had many lives. I finished high school early, and my parents had earmarked me to be a doctor, but that's not what happened. So right now, I'm a confidence and a transformational life coach. That's what I'm doing now. But I'd like to backtrack and tell you how I ended up there. And so, like I said, I was supposed to be the doctor. So I changed faculty twice. Then I decided to go with the Navy. So I was a communication specialist for a while and realized that was not really aligned with who I was, although it gave me a lot of skills in trying new things, definitely leadership, and to learn to overcome obstacles. So that's one thing I gained from that. I've always been curious about doing things, and it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. So I've always took the next leap of faith. So went to university, studied languages. I was planning to go to Europe, but I ended up on the east coast of Canada. I'm actually from Montreal, and then ended up, met someone, stayed there, finished my studies there, but I still find a way to do something that I was interested in, which was being a translator. So for a few years, I was a translator, meaning translating the written form, but I also had the experience to work as a conference interpreter, meaning when you translate, interpret as people talk. And that also made me jump into being a language teacher. So it seems that it was a series of incidents. It was not really planned, but opportunities opened, and I tried it. And from that, I was working in a private school, and then I was offered a position as an instructor for federal government as a language instructor. However, it was in a time of restriction and cutback, so I was only given a contract position. And then at one point, we were told that we might not be reemployed. Make a long story short, there was an assignment that came to me that would give me new opportunities, new skills, and hopefully I thought I would get a permanent job. So I took a chance and took the assignment, not knowing if I was going to get a job back. But what I saw is that if I stayed where I was, all I would be is that I'm at the mercy of the powers to be, versus I might take the chance, get new skills, and maybe redirect my life. And this is exactly what happened. I ended up running a program and placing people to give them professional and career development. So it put me again in a position of leadership and creativity. And I was speaking at different stages, different organizations, municipal, federal, provincial, and interdepartmental. So that opened a totally new world to me. And from that, again, because of the skills I had acquired, unbeknownst to me, that was never planned, but the director of the program, I was talking to a colleague of his who wanted someone with, interestingly enough, my pleiad of skills. So I was offered the position. Again, it was not full-time, it was a permanent position, but I thought, you know what? I've already done it once. I've already took that leap, and look what it took me. Not only I got new skills, a new position, and a promotion. So don't get me wrong. Every time I did take the leap of faith, I had that sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, held my breath, made that decision, and I always came out on the other side. So fast forward, I eventually got a permanent position. And using the different skills that I've had, either in the different positions I had or in the military. So it's interesting how, depending on the situation, that helped me troubleshoot. So I would say I'm outside of the box. Like if I see there's an issue or a challenge, I don't see it as a problem. It's more an opportunity to brainstorm and find a solution. And to get me where I am now, we all know what the pandemic brought to us. And lots of isolation and time to think about your different things. And realize, sometimes we do things because we can do it, but is it really what is aligned with us? So having more time on my hand, I realized that my true purpose was what I was doing on the corner of my desk when I was doing with the different organizations. I was volunteering on different board of directors of women's organization I was involved with. And I thought, but this is what brings me joy. Every time I did something with my volunteer work or helping employees, because I worked in human resources for a while. And I ended up in management for learning programs, but I always found myself coaching and mentoring. And actually, over the years in different departments, I also coordinated mentoring programs. And I thought, but you know what? This is what brings me spark. This is what brings my spark up. This is what brings me joy and fills my cup. And I decided to leave my managerial position a few years before I planned to. And then I became, I followed my purpose. I followed my passion. And this is what I do now, which is empowering women to be who they're destined to be. And that's what I do now.
Yeah, I really do believe that must have been your purpose, because thinking about all of the different job roles that you've had to take on and all the different skills that you learn through your jobs, and coming to a place where you transform other females into confident people, it all makes sense why you would want to do something like that. So when we talk about confidence, were there a lot of setbacks in the jobs that you had that made you into a confident being that you're able to now teach confidence to other girls? What was it? Were you shy at any point during your employment phases?
No, I'm not really shy. Maybe reserved, but not shy. I always spoke my mind. I was told that I was the voice of reason and very diplomatic. But the best way I can illustrate how I felt at different times, and that was a signal to try something new. The best way I could see is, let's say you have, what is it called in English? Oh yeah, hermit crab, They go from one shell to another. When they outgrow it, they move to another one. So I would reach a point of discomfort, not necessarily knowing what exactly, but it was like I felt like I could not be all that I was, all that I could offer at the time, maybe because the organization, the context I was in was not receptive to what I had to offer, or did not have the opportunity for me to hone my skills. So that was always an indicator for me. And the confidence is that although it was scary and not exactly knowing where to go from, it never held me back. And that's one thing I saw over the years. People were feeling that way, but staying there because they thought that's the only thing they could do, that they felt stuck. And that's something that I refuse to do, is to feel stuck. So I guess my confidence was always there. Didn't realize that until, through my path that I'm going, too many people feel stuck. And it's a very uncomfortable position to be in. And I know I can help.
So tell me about, you mentioned earlier on when you were introducing yourself that your family wanted you to become a doctor, but you decided you wanted to do something else. At that point, how were you confident enough to tell your parents and your family, say, this is really not what I want to do. Like, what was it?
Well, in a lot of cultures, as I was the firstborn. So, you have your doctors, you have your lawyers, you have your engineer, and then maybe the teacher. There was this sequence. So, and I was good in science. And, back in the days, the guidance counselor at school will look at what you're good at school and say, okay, this is the field you will go. So that backed up my parents' expectation. Yeah, I could do that, but did I want to do it? Not really. So I tried it, and I knew what it was to work in a hospital setting. I said, this is not me. I know it could be good, but it was not. I knew. I've always known when something was not for me. That's one thing I have to say. So how did I not go there? I just made the decision and told them afterwards. The decision was made. I was going to take the consequences.
Culturally, is that because I come from an Indian background, and your parents, like, if I'm coming from an Indian background, I can't talk against my family, or especially like my father has the last word. I can't go against that. I can go against that. I'm out of the house. What was different? Do you have a cultural? How is it culturally for from your background?
But now my parents' culture is basically the same. I guess I call myself, I was an undercover rebel. I've always I always respected my parents and their decision and so on. But it's that uncomfortable feeling that was overcoming me. And I'm going, I can't do it. I love my parents, but it's not for me. But I knew if I brought it to their attention, they might have convinced me otherwise. So I, again, took that leap, made that decision and hoped for the best. That's what I did. Yeah, so I knew it could be controversial, but...
What other decisions have you taken where it's been a leap of faith for you?
I think when the status quo is wrong, when I see something is wrong, I will speak out. So I've always been like that as a child, actually. And I was told to be quiet. Don't do this. Don't ask so many questions. Looking back, I've always been like that. But I think my parents were trying to contain it. And when I did leave with the Navy, I was not living at home. So that gave me a little more, because I was going there just to take a leap year or two. And like you say, find yourself. And all I knew, it's funny, at the time, all I knew is that I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I didn't want what my parents wanted. So I think what was also a contributing factor, so many people say, oh, you're good with language, you should be going to language if you don't want to be a doctor. You should be a translator. So my idea is that I was going to be a translator at the UN, at the UN. Wow. So that was the plan. I was going to go study in Germany and in different countries in Europe so I could pick up the language and so on. And like I said, there was a bit of a detour, and I did work as a conference interpreter, not abroad, but in Canada, because we have 2 official languages. So I was translating at conferences, also one-on-one when there were government dignitaries coming. So sometimes I would go to private meetings and translate. So that is something that gave me a lot of exposure. I like changes, so I never knew what I was going to have to translate. So I had to become a specialist. So the challenge, I like a challenge. I have to say, I like to rise to a challenge. So that was one thing that I love to do and I still like to do. This is one thing, if somebody asked me to do it again, I would go. It is something I can do, but was it really my purpose? I'm not sure, because right now I'm doing something else. And I was explaining to someone, every day, I don't know what day it is, it doesn't matter what day it is, because I like what I do. Versus before, you'd go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Oh, Wednesday is hump day. Finally, it's Friday. I do not have that feeling anymore, because every day is a new horizon. I'm looking forward to what comes to me.
How many years have you been a life coach for?
Officially, I'd say 2 years. And, I did get my certifications. And I basically, after I left my work, I took a year to kind of heal. So I got training, relax, but to work at it, really 2 years. But what has happened before I had my first client, I was interviewed at podcasts. And this is how people got to know me. I was invited to speak at a conference, a virtual conference. And unbeknownst to me, until the day of, I found out it was 400,000 women around the world. I had no idea. I was a little gobstopped at the time, but it was the day of, did it, and I survived. And I thought, this is cool. And looking back, I've always been speaking because of what type of work I had, being a teacher, being a consultant in the government as well. I always had to do presentations. So I thought, I don't know why it bothered me. Maybe because it was virtual. It's different than when you see the audience, you feed off the audience. So I overcame that. And next thing I know, I was invited to speak in Paris. So I'm doing more speaking than I thought I would be at first. The speaking came first. And then when I started to get clients, that's when it kind of energized me, because I love the way I see my client transform. Because often what they come to me thinking this is what needs to be fixed is not necessarily the root cause of it. And the transformation that comes from the work we did together gives them an aha moment, and for me too, because what I think we will get is never necessarily what we plan to be. And the reason I call my company Chrysalis Women Empowerment, because the woman comes to me and goes into the chrysalis, and we do the work, and they emerge into who they are destined to be, and find that purpose and live a fulfilling life. And it's not necessarily the way they thought it would be, but when they get to the other side, come out of the chrysalis, they know they are where they're supposed to be. And that's what brings me joy, that fills my cup, and that's my mission in life.
How long does the process normally take?
It all depends. When we talk about a coaching relationship, you're looking at least 90 days.
That's quite a long time. They normally say that it takes the brain like up to 3 months to be rewired. So it's a similar sort of concept here.
Because I have a smaller program, but I call it's like, when you have the startup sheet of paper, when you get a new computer, it doesn't give you everything. It just gives you an overall understanding of what's in the machine, right? Versus the old owner's manual. So if somebody wants a taste, I have a shorter term, but what happens is that they just get a taste for it and they want more. So I said minimum of 90 days and somewhat longer, but we delve deeper in other things. And also it depends, as they transform, sometimes they realize, no, but this is really where I had problem. I thought it was this a problem, but it's not. For example, I had a client, she thought she did not like her job, and she was very bitter. It turns out it was not her job. It was a mindset about everything in her life. And she was attributing it to work. Make a long story short, once she understood where the root of the problem was, not only she felt better, people told her she looked different. And she had a totally different approach towards her work. So it was not a question of leaving her work anymore, is how to be a better manager, like to be open to what's presented to her, not be on the defensive. And that was very transformative for her, because she got to really enjoy the work. She enjoyed it, but there was this dark cloud, and she got rid of it. Yeah, she's a different person.
Oh, wow. It sounds like an absolute journey and experience. Do you find a lot of people are crying? Like they get really so emotional that they just can't stop crying during these changes?
It happens, but if they can let go of that emotion and cry, that tells you have built the trust. You have built the rapport, because somebody is not comfortable with you. They will keep their emotion at bay much more easily, and that happens. But I think it's a good thing because it's cathartic. The unpacking. And once you unpack, well, you have everything on the plate and you know what you're really dealing with. And what's interesting, sometimes when they say thank you, I say, well, no, you said it. I didn't say that. And I said, no, this is what you said. Because the answer is always within the person. And what I do is help them unpack it. But because of how it happens, they don't realize it's them until, or sometimes they say, oh, I never thought of it this way. When they reach that moment, it's luminary. It's like cathartic, or aha moment. Wow, I never thought of it. Oh, I didn't know this about me. And that's what I like to see. Because if you don't know where you are, what you have, how can you move forward? How do you know how to steer your course? It's like a beacon. I know, I like to use this analogy. You go into the forest, going for a walk, and then you don't know where you are anymore. And you don't have a compass. And I'm not saying GPS, because GPS doesn't always work everywhere. That's no reception. So you go back the old-fashioned way, compass. If you have a compass, you have a point, you can find your direction. And if you know where you are, you can figure out how to get out. But if you don't have that, this is where it's difficult. So if you don't know who you are, what you are about, if you don't have a sense of purpose, you're going in circle. Or you're going for the next shiny thing, thinking it's the right thing. And usually it's not, because if you're not following, when we don't feel purposeful, it creates angst and stress. So that's the difference. When we know what our purpose is, what our values are, and what is aligned with us, it's a game changer. We have a better way of making decisions, a better way of creating the path that we want, instead of just going maybe for the low-lying fruit because it's there, or staying in one position, one place because it's comfortable, or because whether it's a relationship or a job, staying somewhere just because you're used to it is not a way to, it's often what happens. And there's a sense of loss. What am I doing this for?
So you've actually used the word purpose quite a lot. What does that actually mean? Like, what do you mean by finding your purpose? And how can someone find their purpose?
Okay, your purpose is what you're there for. This is what you are meant to be doing. What difference you want to make. What is it that drives you? Your passion fuels it. Okay, so my passion can be transposed in many ways. I think many of the jobs I had, my passion is that I liked to help people, and I like to see them achieve their goals, whether it's to learn a language or whether it's moving into their career or changing career paths. When I was in HR, that's what I like to do, or helping managers, bringing the right person into that team. So it was always helping. That's probably why I was a teacher before. But as I grew, and I grew, with all my life experience, it has refined how to use my purpose to really see what's my purpose. It's not about the big paycheck or because I can do it. My purpose is to help. And because of what I've gone through in my life, I want to help women. I want to empower women because I've gone through many challenges and obstacles. As a woman of color, I've had many struggles. And as a woman, period, there are many hats that we wear, juggle balls. And if I can make it easier, if I can reduce the suffering, if I can enlighten them, empower them to be pursuing what they want to be and not feeling stuck for whatever reason, that's my purpose.
So can someone find the purpose alone, or do they need a mentor?
Some people have an innate way of knowing their purpose. A lot of people do. And that's why they do. And they have a drive because that's their purpose. They know it's their raison d'être and they go for it. Nothing can stop them because that's their purpose, And some people, because life is different for different people, you can have different challenges in your life, a loss of someone, or, you're going through the mill, you're going through the motions, or maybe lack of self-confidence. If you don't have confidence about yourself, of who you are, that is a factor. To know your worth. If you don't know your worth, that is, I think it goes hand in hand. If you don't know your worth, you don't know who you are. You don't truly know who you are. If you don't really know truly who you are, how can you know your purpose? Because you're at the mercy of whatever is thrown at you. Versus when you know your worth and you have struggles and obstacles and, monkey wrench thrown at you, you build the resilience to plow through it and not be just on the receiving end. And that's, I think, one thing that having a purpose, knowing your purpose, your worth, helps you.
Is there anything someone can do alone to try find the purpose or try and achieve that? Because it's so hard because we have so much going on in our lives and there's so many things that we want to do, but to nail it down to what is my true purpose and then fueling it with your passion, it's difficult, especially when we've all got careers, we've got other things that we have hobbies, but just sometimes a hobby. So for me, for example, one of my hobbies is napping. I love to nap. Obviously, I can nap. Obviously, that's not my purpose, and that can't be my purpose to sleep all day. So I think, where do you find that fine line of figuring it out?
Well, if you were to look, for example, we talk about hobbies. When I have a client who says, I don't know what to do, one of the things we do is go back and see what skills you like, skills you have at work, what you use in your hobbies, in your volunteer work, what do you use to do whatever? Okay, so they unpack all that. And that's a long exercise, but at the end, they see, well, I like to create, or I like to lead. And that you work on, what are your values, your core values? Your core values are your beacon, they are your moral compass. For example, if you are, whether it's in a relationship or in a workplace, I say you need to know what must you have, either in a relationship or in your workplace. Meaning, if you don't have it, it's not for you. So those are your must. And it's a small list. It's not a grocery list. It's 2 or 3 core values, things that you must have. Otherwise, you will not be satisfied. You won't be happy. Then you avoid, again, things that you really don't want to have. And that list is very small. And when you're given, for example, let's say we talk about work, and you see any of your avoids, it doesn't be, it's only 1 or 2. No, if it's present, you will not be satisfied. You will have eggs. You might put up with it for a while, but eventually it will eat at you. It's like, when you have a piece of wood and then you have water dropping on the same spot, it erodes. So you must have your must, because if one is missing, you always have that feeling that's not quite right, because your values are there. So it's transferable, and For example, I had a client, and that was one thing she wanted to do, is change. and people would send her job postings. Yes, she could do it, but she said, I don't have my must. I'm missing one of them. Or, oh, I have one my voice. And she would turn it down. It was not a question of money. She knew all the money would not make a difference because she would be unhappy eventually. She would build a sense of angst, stress, and discontent. Eventually, she did change jobs in a field that was totally different than where she was, and a field she never even considered. But because she knew what she had to offer the world, offer any company she was working for, what she must have in the position, and what she really didn't want, she knew that this new realm, totally different world, would still fit her because she had what she wanted.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have the fear of like taking a risk because it's a leap of faith. You have to let go of something in order to allow yourself to be receptive to something new and a new opportunity. Do you, as part of your work, do you work on limiting beliefs and working on ways that you can get rid of that fear so you do become open to the change, you do be open to trying something new in order to find your purpose, your passion?
Well, that's the thing that I work the most, people, and you don't realize that, because if you have limiting beliefs, this is what will stop you. Also, it's a question of mindset. So you have to reframe your mindset. So that's the bulk of the work, talking about being stuck, taking that leap of faith. I'm not to say Albert Einstein used to say, a ship is always safe ashore, but that's not what it's built for. Yes, you might take a risk, but you don't know what's on the other side. All you know is that if you stay here, yes, you're safe, but are you going to be all that you can be? What will you regret? So yeah, it is scary. It's a leap of faith, and I use that term myself because I've done it many times, because I'm not too sure what's on the other side. But how will I know if I don't take that leap? If it doesn't work to what your expectations are, it's all right. You learn from it. It's not lost. But what is lost is opportunities if you don't take that chance and take that leap. That's a guarantee. You will stay where you are.
Yeah, no, definitely. You completely inspired me today, and trying to figure out my passion, for someone to go find their passion and the purpose and the importance of it. And I really, really encourage everyone to do the work, to find a good mentor, to find someone that can really guide you through the process. And I know using a mentor, finding mentors through the Chrysalis, someone like that someone that you really resonate, someone that you really connect with, would be definitely the next step forward. Well, thank you so much, Yanick, for joining me on the Skillcast podcast.
Thank you for having me.